What's going on, people? Thank you for listening to another episode. Wow, I start the show and boom, I get a message. Welcome to the Retro Gamers. Larry here.
And Anthony here.
What a way to start off. Here I am talking, and I forgot to mute my phone, and we probably got a ton new listeners at this point, too. So now you know how this is going to work.
Yeah, we're, as we record these things, we are as unpredictable as we can possibly be, especially when we're talking about retro stuff.
Absolutely. And retro, and you know what? Let's take a moment to welcome a lot of possible new listeners from via Spreaker, Spreaker.com, the website that we use to host the Retro Gamers podcast.
Yeah, I think that's that was an awesome thing that happened. We are featured on the Spreaker homepage this week, so we've definitely seen an uptick in our listeners. So hello to all you new listeners. I promise that we will get in as much retro information, news, and Virtual Boy insults that we can.
Yeah, VB, Virtual Boy. Go back and listen to the last few episodes. You'll see where my heart is broken on the Virtual Boy.
Yes, and to our new listeners, we're trying to get trending the hashtag VB sucks at some point in time. So, it may take us some time to build to that point. But just always remember, hashtag VB sucks, because the Virtual Boy sucks.
Oh, no, it doesn't. It's a wonderful piece of hardware that just is unjustly thrown to the side.
Which reminds me, how is your Virtual Boy? Oh, you don't have one.
I'm 0-2.
When does 0-3 happen?
When I buy it again and I realize it still don't work.
Well, maybe you'll find somebody selling another broken one at Comic-Con.
Technically, I bought it broke, but it was only the legs that were broken, not the actual eyepiece.
So it was a special edition Virtual Boy.
You know what? You're right. It was a special. You know what? I should have kept it like that. Son of a gun. But, everyone here listening, like Anthony said, yep, we're featured this week on Spreaker. So those listening, go back, listen to the catalog of all 60 episodes prior to this. Well, technically 62 episodes, because we do have 2 special editions.
Yes, we did have some special editions going on there. I believe one of them was about the Switch, and I forgot what the other one was.
The launch of the Nintendo Switch and this year's E3.
Oh, yes, yeah. Our E3 special, which is nice. Yes, because we're we talk, on our show about retro gaming, but we're not just retro gamers. We play current generation stuff as well. Most specifically, my current infatuation with the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild that I've now been playing for 6 months straight on my Nintendo Switch, and I've yet to put any other game in the system.
Come on, man! Download Sonic Mania. It's $20.
No, I know. I want it. It's on my list. I have like a whole list of games that I want to download and play, but I just want to finish Breath of the Wild. I'm so close. Like I can beat Ganon whenever I want, but then they have that Master Quest thing download. So now I'm trying to get the special Master Sword, like the souped up Master Sword, and I'm working through that. And then there's another set of DLC I think coming out like next month or the month after, and I'm never going to stop playing this game.
Meanwhile, I think I just barely got past like the first level or the first dungeon or something like that. I'm a little slow in my gameplay.
I was just going to say, but that's par for the course for you. You don't like finishing games.
It's not that I don't like it. Hey, listen, not for nothing. Yes, in the past of my 37 years on this planet, I may not have accumulated a bunch of end games, but I have picked up the pace in the last 3 months.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that. Yeah, you've actually decided, or I think maybe you just had an epiphany and realized that games were meant to be beaten, so that you finally started doing it. I mean, I've been beating video games since I was like 6 years old.
You know what here's my problem. My problem was, and I think a lot of people had this problem. This sounds like it's a first world problem. I'm aware of this. But you buy a game, you play it, but then you get a new game, and then the old one goes to the shelf, and then you start playing the new one. And then that becomes old when you get a new one, and that's the progression that happened with me.
Yeah, see, and if Breath of the Wild is any indication whatsoever of how I play games, I play it until it's beaten.
Listen, okay? you save a lot more money that way.
I mean, I know exactly. Like Bomberman, which I bought at launch, for the Switch, and you bought it as well so that we could play multiplayer, has yet to go in my system.
Is the shrink wrap even broken?
No. It's open.
Okay,
it's
good.
It's in the little SD card or whatever you want to call it. The card's
Yeah.
in my carrying case. It comes with me on every. It's been coming with me on every trip since March. Since I got the system in March. I mean, the system has been to Japan like 4 times. It's been to Orlando like 6 or 7 times. And yet Breath of the Wild remains the only game played in my system.
You know what? It's a gorgeous game, so really you can't be faulted for playing Breath of the Wild. Meanwhile, at the end of this week, though, we're going to be going back to playing old school games because we have the Super Nintendo Classic is dropping on Friday.
Oh yes, no, we got the SNES Classic is arriving.
The Super NES.
No, I know how much you love it when I say SNES, so I'm just going to keep saying SNES.
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 It's like when people say Super Mario Bros. No, it's Super
That's
Mario.
What it is.
It's Super Mario
that's what
Brothers.
No, it's Super Mario Bros. Period.
I gotta add the period.
Yeah, well, it's on the game.
It's like Mr. T. I forgot some show Mr. T was on. He's like my full name, my first name Mr., my middle name period, my last name T.
Oh yeah, I remember what he's. Now, is there a period after the T, sir?
No, fool.
But getting back to the SNES,
your SNES Classic is already on order.
Yes, because I got lucky.
Boy, did you ever.
Yeah, for those, I got lucky, and not in that sense, unfortunately. But I got lucky on the day they were doing the pre-orders because I was obsessive-compulsively refreshing my Target menu. I must have added it to the cart like 7 times before, over the course of like 30 or 40 minutes. In the middle of the afternoon, by the way.
Yeah,
this was like hours. This was like 4 hours after the pre-orders went up because that's how crazy the sites were crashing. But I managed to eke in a pre-order at Target. Now, I am still hesitant to believe that pre-order is going to be honored because of the way Nintendo has handled the NES Classic and now the SNES Classic. So so like I'm not even trusting it. I will be online on Friday the 29th
right.
getting a SNES, and if I get 2, great. I'll have an extra one. I'm sure there's somebody in my family or friends circle who's not going to get one.
I can use one.
I can use an
extra one.
No, you're getting in line on Friday. No, you can use an extra one to eBay. I get it, but
no, how dare you? Absolutely not.
No. But I know plenty of people. That's like when I got the NES Classic in August through the Amazon Treasure Truck.
Yeah.
Like immediately, I knew somebody who wanted one, and and they got it for retail price.
I need 3 of them.
Why do you need 3?
1 for me.
Yeah.
1 for my godson.
Yeah.
And 1 for a friend of mine.
And who is this illustrious friend?
That's for a different podcast.
Oh, boy. Larry. Okay.
We have new listeners. The Better Half podcast. Check it out every other Wednesday.
Oh, geez. If you're going to plug all your other podcasts, I don't think we're going to have new listeners.
We'll do that at the end.
That's the end of the show. But anyway, getting back to the classic.
Let me ask you this.
Friday.
Yes. What time do you plan on getting online?
Currently, a friend of mine and I are planning on getting online at 5 a.m.
Oh man, you're going. So I gotta go solo. At least you got someone to help you out. All right.
Oh, but I have other friends who are just like they know the ins and outs of these things. He did give me one tip. He did give a tip of going to Best Buy.
That's where I went for the NES Classic. I feel like that's going to be better.
Yeah, because he said Best Buy will get more.
Yeah.
They'll get more consoles than like a Walmart or a Target or even a GameStop.
I agree with that.
Because, when the pre-orders went down at GameStop, most GameStop said the most pre-orders they were taking were 10.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
That's all they were promised.
And when I ended up getting, again, this is mostly for the new listeners, when I got my NES Classic, I got it in December. I actually got it like a week before Christmas. And Best Buy, I was number 46 of 52. And that was already after multiple shipments of the NES Classic were sent out. So you're right. I think odds are get online on a Best Buy. You're going at 5 a.m. I plan on being there at about maybe 2 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
If not midnight.
You're crazy.
Oh, no, you have no idea.
I'm doing the 5 a.m. bit. My friend's meeting me there at 5 a.m. I'm going to bring my Switch to entertain myself.
I lined up at 5 a.m. for the NES
I remember,
Classic, and
and
I was
barely
number
got
46 of 52. So,
well, you know what's funny though? Like, I have a I don't know why, but I have a sneaky suspicion that this time it's not going to be as bad. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I feel like I'm being stupid because every time I give Nintendo a little bit, like I give them a little bit of leeway, it's like they yank it and then they wrap it around my neck and they hang me with it. Because for some reason I'd like to think they learned from their mistake, and now when you show up, they're gonna have, maybe I'm not saying like they're gonna have thousands of them, but in other words, they're gonna have enough to satisfy the customer base at least for the day, as opposed to just everybody in line, like half of you are gonna get it and that's it, it's over.
I like to believe that they've learned their lesson from the NES. Well, they sure did learn their lesson from the NES, because the NES Classic they're re-releasing next year. So with the Super Nintendo, I think that there will be enough for launch. I think there will be enough, even if you don't get it launch day. I feel like the restock of the system is going to be a whole lot quicker. It's still going to be limited. Like, in other words, you're not going to see them on sale for the next 5 years. But I think there will be enough to ask for the demand for the Super Nintendo. But here's the other funny thing. When I talk to a lot of my friends, like older friends, we're all gung-ho about the NES, like they remember the NES.
Yep.
Maybe because it's the generation thing. Not so many people like, I played the Super Nintendo, but I didn't love the Super Nintendo.
Well, it could have been they were Genesis lovers, or something called puberty hit, and off they went.
This is very true.
These things, those things happen.
Absolutely.
But here's a question to throw at you.
All right.
What is the first game you plan on playing on the SNES?
Ask it correctly.
I did.
On the Super Nintendo or the SNES, do you say TMT instead of TMNT?
Oh, yeah, totally.
TMT, the arcade game. I play. You know what? Honestly,
Turtles Through Time.
It's either gonna be Super Mario World for the sole reason of just getting.
That was the first game you played on the original?
No. To kind of get that feel again of the controller, like that classic, like the Super Nintendo controller. It sounds weird, but because I'm familiar with that game, so I can kind of just get used to the controller again. But really, I think the first game I'm really going to sit down and play, it has to be Star Fox 2.
Well, it's funny because like everybody's going to say that because Star Fox 2 was never released on the on the Super Nintendo. So, but the thing about Star Fox 2 is they took a lot of the elements in Star Fox 2 and threw it into Star Fox 64. So I'm expecting a lot of familiarity with the game just based off of that explanation.
Okay.
So my original, because I was thinking about it too. I'm like, oh, what's the first game I'm going to load up and play? And of course, my first thought was, oh, I got to try Star Fox 2 first.
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized, once I realized, I was like, it's a great game and everything like that. But that is not going to be the first game I'm going to play.
Let me guess.
Go ahead.
Link to the Past.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, because Zelda: Link to the Past, arguably one of the best Zelda games ever made.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Zelda Overload right now with Breath of the Wild, so and I don't want to mix my Zeldas.
Here's how for the new audience. Here's how much Anthony loves Legend of Zelda. A couple years ago. And Anthony's out on the West Coast. I'm here on the East Coast. I'm in New York. Anthony's in California. But for a while, when Anthony was back in New York for a little bit, we went to New York Comic Con. And while we're waiting online at New York Comic Con, which was probably for a couple of hours, I had my Nintendo 3DS, which I had the original Legend of Zelda on. I'm pretty sure Anthony beat the game while we were waiting online.
Yeah, I did.
Like, it was almost like a speed run.
No, pretty much. Well, it's my version of a speed run. I'm definitely not a speed runner with games. And for some odd reason in the original Zelda, I remember everything to a T until I get to levels 8 and 9. I don't know why. But the levels in there don't stick in my head as well.
Maybe because you haven't played those as often. Like, we've all played the first few dungeons hundreds of times.
No, true, and that's probably it. Unless I'm just getting old, which is true also.
That could be the case.
But yeah, no, like every time I sit down to play the first Zelda, I feel like I have to sit down and beat it. It's like my duty to sit down and beat the whole thing. And I'm talking about collecting everything. I want the blue ring, I want the red ring, I want the lion key, I want the works when I play that thing. So, but yeah, but getting back to the SNES classic, but
if you hear an explosion, that's my head.
Yes, I know that's what I'm aiming for. Actually, the first game I really want to play on it is Earthbound because I've never played Earthbound.
All right, fair enough.
So
okay.
yeah, there are a couple of games because I was looking at the list of the games and I'm like, okay, which games haven't I played? Earthbound, Secret of Mana are two of the games I've never played. I've also never played Super Metroid. Now,
You're gonna love that.
I know. The Metroid series, the only Metroid I ever really played was the first one on the NES, and it's also on my list of games I never beat.
Okay, no, that's definitely a it's on.
Yeah.
Good thing it's on the NES Classic, so you can beat Metroid on the NES and then beat Super Metroid on the Super NES.
Exactly. So now, like, I'm actually going to start working my way through the Metroid series the way that I worked my way through the Zelda series.
I forgot about Super Metroid being on that system, and I've played very, very little Super Metroid. I was playing Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance, which is amazing game. But yeah, no, you're right. Super Metroid. Maybe that'll be really the first one I venture into.
Yeah. I also currently question the fact of why are there two Kirby games on there? Were they that good?
I mean, Kirby, he's that license, like Kirby's like it's
that.
like Mario, Link, Kirby in the Nintendo world.
Yeah, I never think of Kirby as that iconic a character, maybe because I pretty much skipped all the Kirby games. Like to me it would be more like Mario, Link, Samus.
Okay, or maybe Donkey Kong.
Or Mario or Mario, Link, Donkey Kong, Mario, Link, Simon Belmont, I mean,
true.
Like that's where I
Kirby,
go.
You're right. I skipped over a lot of the Kirby games until recently. I was playing a couple of the recent Kirby games on Nintendo 3DS, and when I play that gameplay, I'm like, I missed out on a lot because the gameplay is actually really, really good. The NES game is kind of annoying, but like the original Game Boy game, and I know you're not big on handhelds, but the original Game Boy game was just fantastic.
Yep. Now, do you also plan on picking up the Playing with Superpower Super NES Classics guide?
If it's there, I may order it later.
I always love picking up those hardcover books now. Like that N64 anthology I have is amazing.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, you really got to pick that up. I eventually I'll do a retro review on that when I'm done reading the book because I know like I think so far the only book I did a retro review on was Console Wars because that was like the big book that I read. Since then I've been reading some Stephen King because of it. So and which by the way is the next book I'm picking up again. So I plan on doing some more retro reviews on books that I have because I've bought quite a few.
Okay.
I need to do that. But
anyway, do a live stream. Just you sitting there, just being like licking your finger to change the page. Like, don't even say a word. Just sit there.
And it's not even like a Kindle or anything like that. You're actually going to see me turning physical pages because that's how retro I am.
I like that. So this weekend, Super Nintendo. The following weekend thereafter is, if you're on the East Coast and you're in the tri-state area, let alone
let's not skip over. Wait.
What did I forget?
Next weekend, the day after I get my SNES Classic, I get to celebrate it by attending the Legend of Zelda Symphony.
Oh, that's next week. That's right.
That is September 30th at the Dolby Theater, home of the Oscars.
Oh, okay. Well, at least something good's coming to the Dolby Theater. So with the Legend of Zelda, no, that's pretty cool. Symphony. I can't wait to hear about that.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to that because I've been wanting to go for the last couple of years, and and I was actually very surprised even when I ordered the tickets, they were pretty much all sold out.
Oh wow!
When I got my hands on them, so two friends and I will be attending that, and I'll have a nice review, and probably knowing me, I will have a few videos to post on our page for that as well.
Awesome! There you go. How about illegally live stream it for all of us?
No.
That's right. You work in Hollywood.
That's right. I don't believe in that stuff.
I don't blame you. You're exactly right. Well, while you're at Zelda Symphony, I'm going to be working backstage interview segments for Pro Wrestling Syndicate in New Jersey.
Oh, man, and let me tell you something. I wish I was there to do that with you.
I'm going to be in Mechucking, New Jersey. Yeah, look it up on a map.
Are you doing backstage interviews and commentating, or just doing
No,
backstage
I'm
interviews?
not. I'm not commentating. I'm going to leave that one to the professionals. But I'm going to be doing like backstage interviews for. Here we go. For my podcast, the Pro Slam World Podcast, which drops on Fridays. So this is going to get a little inside baseball, and then we'll move on. Ant, it was nice knowing you because I may be talking to New Jack.
Oh boy.
If you're into wrestling, you know my concern. So with that,
well, you know what? Just keep a towel and a doctor handy and a tetanus shot, and you should be fine.
Joking. No, New Jack, he's a cool guy. It's going to be good. But that's what I'm going to be doing. So
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank
So
you very
then,
much.
so then the following Retro Gamers episode, I'm gonna have to find a new co-host.
No, New Jack is awesome. So now that would be two of us because you used to work for WWE. I'm going to be working for Pro Wrestling Syndicate, and
That is true.
We'll see where the future heads. But yeah, we have a couple of big weekends for both of us because then the weekend after that, I'm going to be at New York Comic Con at the Jacob Javits Center in the heart of
correct.
New York City. I
will be in Las Vegas, and I'll very exciting, of course, not only to go to Vegas again, but I'm going with my friends because a bunch of us have October birthdays, so this is our annual October celebration.
That's cool.
And I get to return to one of my favorite retro gaming stores, a Gamer's Paradise.
Yes, they got a lot of cool stuff. I follow them on Facebook, man. They got a lot of cool stuff.
They have amazing stuff. And then right next door to a Gamer's Paradise is the Pinball Hall of Fame.
Nice.
So I'll be hitting all of those up again and having a blast.
If you can, next time you go, try and take pictures of that versus Super Mario Brothers. We talked about that last week. It's coming to the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, no, I will definitely take pictures of that. And yes, the Versus is coming to the Switch, which is yet another game that we can play against each other.
Absolutely. And also, I may need to send you a list of a couple NES games.
Shopping list?
Maybe, just maybe.
Uh-oh.
Maybe I'll throw you a little money for a birthday gift.
Okay, well, they're out. I'm sorry. I'll tell you right now.
So at New York Comic Con, first of all, just to let you know that if I meet up with him, which I will, I think we may be doing it Saturday, but we do a lot of crossovers. We're friends with another set of podcasts called Victims and Villains. They also work with the PS Midnight Cast, their group over there, Josh, Brandon, and Josh, who does Victims and Villains, which is a great podcast. Listen to it. Download both of those, and they do a lot. Their message, their cause, if you will, is tremendous. Suicide prevention. I mean, they're definitely doing tremendous work over there. And absolutely. And we've done some crossovers. Definitely go back, check them out. It's been fun. Josh and myself, we're going to be there, and we're going to do our best to stream live. So we're actually going to do a live podcast from New York Comic Con.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, that should be Saturday. Saturday.
That weekend we'll also be covering. For the following recording, we have to cover the Nintendo World Championships for that weekend.
That's that weekend as well. Who knows? Maybe I'll try and sneak my way over there.
If I were you, I would try and sneak over since you're right there anyway.
That's what I can do. So at and you know what, Comic-Con, even though Comic-Con is what it is, we all know what a Comic-Con does. It's a lot of comic books, superhero movies, all this stuff.
But comic books, a lot of cons.
Yeah, pretty much, especially in the city. But there's a lot of, I tend to see a good handful of retro stuff. Like retro games. There's maybe like 2 or 3 tables a year that sell retro video games.
Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, especially, for us.
Absolutely. And now that I have the Retron HD that plays NES cartridges, I mean, I am on the lookout this year.
Yeah, which is good because I still say there's nothing like playing the original cartridges. Yes, I know they take up a lot of room and stuff like that, and it's a lot easier to go a simpler route of like emulation and whatnot. But there's something about having either the original console or another console, like it, and just putting in the cartridge and playing it. It's like I just love doing that. I do not love sitting there and blowing on the games and trying to make them work, even though I know blowing on the games doesn't do anything. I don't care. I've been doing it since I was a kid, and I'm going to keep doing it forever.
You know what we need to look up? We need to do the research because, that whole mythos of blowing on the cartridge to make it work. I'm still trying to figure out where did we all get that from, because there was no internet back then.
I just think it was,
Was it
it was
like
just
a
one of the,
natural reaction?
No, I don't know if it was a natural reaction. I think it was maybe one of those things that was just a word of mouth type of situation where it's like, oh, you know what? I heard from somebody that if you blow into the cartridge, it's going to work. My fascination was always with the when you got a game to work in the NES without pushing the cartridge down.
That's never happened with me. So
that happens with me all the time. I did it in my console like 2 weeks ago. I popped a game in and I couldn't get it to work when I pressed it down, and I just left it up and it worked. And I'm like, what the hell?
What the deuce?
I just don't get it. But anyway, I mean, yeah. I'm sure there are like, and maybe that's a topic for another week too, since but just like myths surrounding our retro consoles, like the blowing into the game, or like I'm sure there are a ton of things like that that we can discuss. That one is always the most prevalent in my head. Blow into the cartridge and it's going to work. Nope, not true at all.
And at Comic-Con, I was just going to mention with kind of a link to the retro gaming. The last couple years at New York Comic Con, Funko has been there, and Funko does the pop vinyls. The little figures with the big doe eyes, and I have way too many of them. So of course, yeah, right. So of course, I'm going to feed into my addiction, because they're going to have New York Comic Con exclusive 8-bit pop vinyls, and they're the regular pop vinyls, but they look 8-bit. They're very blocky. And as I'm staring at them, I'll post the link up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/RetroGamersPodcast. These things look awesome. I mean, they're mostly Ninja Turtles, but I mean, they have 8-bit Batman, 8-bit Dig Dug. Now, if anything's going to be 8-bit, it's going to be Dig Dug.
Yeah, that makes total sense, since he actually was.
Yeah, and then they have 8-bit Shredder from the Ninja Turtles, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different color foot soldiers, white, red, blue, yellow, purple, and those are again all 8-bit. So I'm really hoping, because I'm in the lottery, to get a ticket to be able to wait online to possibly buy pop vinyl exclusives.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
We'll try that again. You need a Venn diagram for that one?
No. But you have to get a ticket to enter a contest to win an opportunity to stand online to get a pop vinyl.
Yes, and this happened last year. So what happens is
that's dumb.
It's free. You have to enter a lottery.
Dumb.
Hold on. You enter. It's honestly, because otherwise it would be chaos at that booth. And between me and a few of our friends who collect these, it would just be insanity. So they did this last year. Basically, I just put my name into a raffle, and then what happens is I get an opportunity. If I win, I won last year, and I got a really good time, like when it opened. That's what you want to get. So you win a ticket, and it'll tell you the time to go to the Funko booth. You can't go any earlier than that, because the only people they're selling to are the people who win these raffles. So you go to the Funko booth, and then you wait online. Now, this is not a guarantee that you will get the pop vinyl that you want, because it is possible that the pop vinyl may be sold out by the time you get up there.
And that's absolutely ridiculous.
So that's why I'm really hoping I get another, like, when it opens situation. I hope I get it for Friday, because I'm going Friday and Saturday. Because I need these pop vinyls, and there's a couple of other exclusives. And a Zack Ryder exclusive that I really want to get.
Oh boy! All right, do me a favor. Just get me a Dig Dug.
I will see what. And I don't know. You're only allowed to buy one of each.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Oh God!
Last year, the chaos of like people not online talking to people online, because they hand out a sheet of what they're selling. They're like, "Are you getting this, this, and this?" Well, I'm getting these two. All right, can you buy me this one? Like, people were wheeling and dealing while waiting online. It was hysterical.
That is insane.
Oh,
well,
it is so nuts.
I just want a Dig Dug. That's all I asked for. And you know what? If you can't get me one, I'm going to have to reach out to my connections.
You do that. Wait, you have connections with pop vinyl? Hold on.
No comment.
Oh, you bum. So New York Comic Con. Yeah, so
I wait in line for nothing except the SNES Classic.
Yes, and you know what? We may actually even do our little individual reporting from wherever we're going to be.
Oh my God! Can we both live stream at the same time?
Listen,
on the
yes.
29th.
Follow us on our respective Facebook pages. Well, Anthony can broadcast from the Retro Gamers page. I'll broadcast from my own. And
well, technically, also technically, you're going to get yours before me because I'm 3 hours behind.
That is true. You're right. So we're not. Oh, you're right. So we're not going to be online at the same time.
No, not really.
No, actually, you would be getting online by the time
you're getting
doors open. Yeah.
Yeah, because doors open at 8, right?
Yeah, that is true. In fact, when I get online, you'll probably be eating dinner.
Yeah.
Because I'm nuts, people.
Yeah, well, yeah, but don't tell people that. We'll lose listeners.
So tune in next week to hear how all this turns out with the Super NES Classic.
Why do I have a feeling there's at least one of us is going to be angry?
Oh, listen, you already have yours on pre-order. I don't. So if anyone has anything to lose...
Yes. But I repeat, I still don't trust it. I don't care that I have a pre-order. I don't trust it.
Tune in next week to hear the results of the Super NES Classic.
SNES. All right, Larry, it's that time of week again for our Wacky Retro game.
Wacky Retro. All right.
No, we don't have an intro for this, but that's okay.
We don't need one.
No, we really don't need one because I think the games speak for themselves.
What do we got this week?
This week's Wacky Retro game was released on the Dreamcast.
Really?
By developer Vivarium Jellyvision. Yes.
This is a PG show now.
Yeah, Vivarium Jellyvision. And the title of the game on the Dreamcast is called Seaman.
Oh! I'm like, that producer sounds familiar. I know that game.
Seaman was released on the Dreamcast July 29th, 1999 in Japan, and then about a year later, August 9th, 2000 in North America. Now, Seaman, which is spelled Seaman,
just so
for
we're on
those
the
of
record.
you out there, I just want to be on the record that when I say this repeatedly. And Seaman stars a fish with a human face.
Oh, what a creepy face, too.
And it was one of the creepiest, it's the creepiest face in the world. So pretty much when you turn on this game, all you see is a fish with a human face. Now, what is the game about, you might wonder?
I wonder.
Seaman is a virtual pet, kind of like a Tamagotchi. And basically the job is you need to figure out how to feed and nurture this creature. Because what happens is when you turn the game on, all that happens is the screen comes on and there's Seaman just staring at you. There are no instructions. Nobody tells you what to do. It's just you and Seaman, and you have to figure out what to do to nurture this thing. Now, every once in a while... and this is one of my favorite parts about the game. But every once in a while, you get special instructions by the narrator in this game, who was none other than Leonard Nimoy.
Yes,
Leonard Nimoy provided his voice to this game, where he gave instructions on what you could do. But you had to log onto this game every single day to interact with Seaman, or he would die. And you can talk to him, and he would respond. It actually used the microphone for the Dreamcast.
Yep.
Where you can talk, and he would respond to you. And then if you nurtured him correctly, he would evolve, and then eventually he would spout little mini Seaman, and it was just this weird game. Now, what was the funniest thing that I found out about this Wacky Retro game? It wasn't the only one released. There were 2 other versions in Japan, including a special Christmas edition.
Was there?
And then there was Seaman 2 on PlayStation 2.
Really?
So,
oh my gosh! I never thought I'd get Seaman on the PlayStation 2.
I know. So if anybody out there is interested in nurturing a fish with a very ugly human face, I highly recommend that you go and look up this week's Wacky Retro game, Seaman.
All right. So this week I wanted to talk about a genre of game that is near and dear to my heart. I don't know if I'm sure you've played some of these games, but I am such a fan of vertical and horizontal side-scrolling shoot-'em-ups.
Yes, and you definitely love these games more than I do. Yes, I have played them, but they've never really been. They just haven't been like my. I haven't been the biggest fan of them. Basically, I mean they're fun to play, but they're also games where I'm just like, I can take them or leave them.
Well, let me ask you, what are some of the ones that you've played that you've enjoyed?
Okay. So let's see. Gradius.
A classic, absolute classic.
Yeah, like it's probably the more popular ones that most people know. So like a Gradius, a Life Force, Xevious.
Oh wow, yeah, that's an original. That is old school.
Remember Xevious?
Yep.
And I'm trying to think of like other ones. Like if you remind me of some, I'll probably remember them. But it's really just it's probably like after if it was on the NES, I remember playing them. Maybe like 1942. I remember playing that, or Tiger Healy was another one.
That one. Okay.
Yeah, Tiger Healy was another one. I think it was with a helicopter.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, but that's really it. I mean, I just remember a handful of NES ones, and that was it. And I really didn't move on from there. Like, yeah, I mean, I was a puzzle game guy, I think, more than the side-scrolling ones. So, like, if you gave me like a Solomon's Key, if you gave me like a Bubble Bobble, where it's like the screen, you finish the puzzle in the room and then move to the next room, that was more my style.
All right, no problem. Me and you named the big ones. I mean, Gradius on the NES, R-Type, which was originally on the TurboGrafx 16.
Forgot about R-Type.
I got introduced to Super R-Type on the Super Nintendo, which I'm very upset is not on the Classic, but whatever. And R-Type 3 was also on Super Nintendo.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
I only remember the first R-Type.
The history of these types of games, I mean, like you even mentioned, like God, I almost called it Xanax. Xevious, excuse me.
Although right now, I'll be honest with you, I can use the Xanax.
These games go back way, way back to the beginning. Probably some of the first, games made. Like even if you want to almost look at a game like Space Invaders, almost kind of, sort of, Gradius, Galaxian, these games, and basically the whole idea is just you have your one ship and you're just moving forward, whether you like it or not, whether you're going vertical or horizontal. And the gameplay is just fire at will, pretty much. It's a lot of the games are very much pick 'em up games. That's what I like about them. There's story to them, but really you just kind of pick them up and play. They're good for on the go.
Well, and that's the cool thing about them. To your point, it's like if you don't feel like diving into a game that has like 100 levels to complete, or an RPG or something like that, if you're just looking for like a quick 10 or 15 minute thing that you want to get through, I mean that's definitely those games were definitely the ones to play for it. And like I said, and that's probably the extent of my experience with them. Was like those are the in between games when I wasn't doing a Mario or a Link or something like that. I would throw one of those in, for just a quick fix, basically.
No, absolutely. One of the earliest ones I remember love playing, and you may have it. I don't know if it's in your Commodore 64 group of games. It may be Choplifter.
Oh, Choplifter! I forgot about Choplifter. Yep. I do not know. I still have to go through the whole Commodore 64 collection. And actually, this is a good place for me to announce that I actually talked to a friend of mine, Jamie, who was a huge Commodore 64 player. Okay. I know Frank from the Better Half was also a big Commodore 64 player. But since he doesn't live on the West Coast, he can't help me with this. So my friend Jamie, we're going to sit down one day and we're going to live stream me booting up the old Commodore 64. That's cool. And not just to boot it up and show it off, but really, I have a ton of games in there where the labels have fallen off because they've been on there for 30 years. So I think we're gonna sit down and we're gonna play a little game of which game is this, and we're gonna try and figure out what I actually have in my collection that's not labeled.
Be on the lookout, folks.
That's gonna be an interesting one. Spoiler alert, they're all Custer's Revenge.
Oh, all right. Password required. The games here. So with just to go through some of the fun games, the reason why I want to talk about this as well is because with the Nintendo Switch, you're able to download virtual console games, of course. And one of the ones that I purchased recently was for the TurboGrafx 16. It was a game called Blazing Lasers, and it was
never heard of that one.
Yeah, it's very. It's a vertical. It's a vertical side scroller. It has every one of these shooters is all the same, pretty much the same story. You're in a spaceship and you're off to beat the aliens. That's pretty much it. But the way each game though has its like little bit of a twist on a style that, because I'm going to explain in a few moments, it was another game for the GameCube that put a real different spin on this series. But with Blazing Lasers, came out in TurboGrafx 16 back in 1989. I never owned a TurboGrafx 16, and it was a game like Star Soldier, and these are games that I'm discovering on the Virtual Console that are just breathing life into the genre that started for me with 1942.
Oh yeah, 1942. Wait, wasn't 1940? Was there 1941 or was 1942 the first game?
1942 was the first game on the NES, because then it came out the sequel, 1943.
Okay, no, I remember 1943, but for some odd reason I thought it was in 1941. I don't know why.
And I played 1942 till the bitter end. That game, just the power-ups in that game were pretty cool, because what happens is that, to me, was one of the first vertical scrollers where there was some strategy to it. You weren't just running and gunning, or in this case, flying and gunning. You had to knock, like they had the 5 red airplanes that you had to gun down to be able to get power-ups. And the power-ups, and even what's fun is you can even, while moving, I think this was more in 1943, you can shoot the power-up to change the power-up. So, but you had like that limited time because the screen never stopped moving.
Wow. Do you let me ask you a question. Did you beat the game?
No, of course not. Come on now.
Okay. No. I just want to put it out there.
1942 was probably, in my opinion, one of the best vertical side-scroller games. Probably my absolute favorite horizontal side-scrolling series, though, is R-Type. And R-Type was one I played. My buddy, I only knew one of my friends, was the only one I knew who had a TurboGrafx 16. And he had R-Type, and I just fell in love with this game. What is awesome about R-Type, again, each one of these scrollers sets themselves apart in a little bit. With R-Type, what happens is your power-ups becomes this orb that you can set either in the front of your ship or in the back of your ship. And the orb does power up after like 3 or 4 power-ups. The weapon keeps getting bigger and better. It was the first game that I remember beyond Gradius. No, actually, Gradius even have this, where you can select like different weapons for your power-up, whether it be a laser, whether it be these weird rings that came out, like these colored rings that would come out of the front of the ship. The best part about R-Type, though, with that option, which I'm going to steal a line from the Gradius series, is you were able to use that option itself as a weapon. You were able to launch it out in front of you, and it would just, whatever touched it would destroy. So it was almost like a missile.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And then the fun part is it would just slowly come back to you. And as it was coming back, you can maneuver it.
Just grab it again.
Exactly. Maneuver it to destroy more enemies. And then the best part, which also became the worst part of it, you can also load it up to the back of your ship. So you can launch it out and then kind of back into it, and then you're firing from the back, which is awesome, except sometimes when it gets hot and heavy on the screen and then you accidentally attach it to the back of the ship, then you're panicking because you have no protection in front of you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would think you would always want the protection in front of you.
Of course.
Now, not to break up the conversation with that, but did you ever play one of the most beloved side-scrolling shooter games that people love to play called Abadox?
Abadox. I don't think I've played that one.
Okay. Remember, Abadox was one of the... And the only reason why I bring this one up, I've never played it either, is because there's a YouTube video of a guy playing Abadox who basically has a nervous breakdown while he's playing it, because it's considered one of the most difficult side-scrolling shooters of all time.
All right.
So the guy can't even get through the first level, but
Oh,
as
jeez.
he goes on, it's just one of those things where he gets increasingly angry and then he just loses himself. Uh,
Those are
and
the
it's
best
probably
YouTubes.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth going on YouTube to check out. I'll see if I can find it. I'll post it on our page.
All right.
But yeah, if you've never seen the Angry Abadox player, man, you're missing out.
I will check. It's almost as good as remember the angry Super Mario Brothers player who was playing like the modded Super Mario Brothers game.
Oh yeah, I
Remember that
remember
guy?
him.
Had that
Yes.
his voice, which is very almost sounded Italian.
Yeah. You know, it was funny. And while you were talking about R-Type and all those games, it made me think of another side-scrolling shooter that I used to play. It was Defender on the Atari 2600.
There you go, going back even
Remember
further.
that one?
Yep.
Yeah, that was. I remember playing that game all the time, and I know I never beat it, but I don't know. I mean, did Atari games even have endings?
Yeah,
at the
right.
time?
Not really. Just kind of kept going. Atari.
Some did.
No, they did. But like in the vein of Choplifter, in the vein of Defender, even in the because like Empire Strikes Back on Atari was a bit of a side-scrolling shooter. Granted, you were able to go back and forth on the screen, but you consider that a side-scrolling shooter.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it pretty much like the level would loop itself, kind of like in Choplifter. But I kind of like, for me, the love really hit on the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Which is why, again, I'm kind of a little upset there's really not that many of these games, if any, I don't remember, on the Super Nintendo Classic. But then
I
you
don't
get
think
like
there is.
you get like a weird game. Do you remember Phalanx? Phalanx?
I remember the name of it. I don't remember. I don't know what the game was about.
You may remember the box because we've talked in the past about how the box art sold the game back in the day because there was no internet. I'm going to send this to Anthony here, and we'll post it up on the Facebook page. But when you look at that box, what do you expect out of this game? And I'll explain it in a moment for people who aren't familiar with it.
Well, maybe I'll explain it.
Okay, fair enough.
So let's see what happens. Well, let me load it
Loading.
up on my slow laptop. So Phalanx. Okay, so the cover's got a spaceship on the top right. And then it says the hyperspeed shootout in space with the word phalanx, and the N and the X are kind of, it looks like they're kind of fading a little bit on the right, or they're bleeding in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then to the left is an old man in a chair in his bib overalls with a long white beard and a hat playing a banjo.
Exactly.
What the hell is this?
That has nothing to do with the game.
Yeah, but guess what? Does it make you pay attention to the cover?
Oh, absolutely. And what's awesome,
There you go. Mission accomplished.
IGN named it their 5th most awesome cover in a top 25 countdown.
There you go.
And yeah, it has nothing to do with an old man playing a banjo. It is hysterical. I love that box art. It's fantastic.
Oh man, that's just hysterical.
Later on, the Gradius series started really evolving on Super Nintendo. I remember the one I had Gradius. Was it Gradius 3 on Super Nintendo? I believe it was. Either 3 or 4. I want to say 3. Where that was the first one I remember where you were able to customize your ship. Now in Gradius, let's step back for a moment. Horizontal side scroller made by Konami, one of the best games out there. Period.
Yep.
But when you got to like Gradius 3, I don't remember if you were able to do it in Life Force, but in Gradius 3, you were able to start really customizing what weapons you were able to get in the game. Because as you flew in the game, as you destroyed ships, you would get power-ups. And on the bottom bar, you had about 5 or 6 different power-ups. And it went in order. Speed, this may be a little out of order. Speed, missile, gun, shield, option. And what happens is every time you got a power-up, it would light up a segment of the bar on the bottom. So if you wanted to power up your gun, you had to get 3 power-ups to get to that part of the level. If you wanted to get a shield, you had to get like all 5 to get to that part of the upgrade thing, which is why usually my ship went really super fast and had a horrible gun because I kept just doing it right in the beginning. And it also had these options. They were called options, not an option. It was these floating orbs that you can add, and they would either surround your ship, They would follow you. They'd be like an S pattern. But the customizations, I remember, was just so much fun to be able to play with different ways to see how you wanted to play a game like Gradius 3. Whether you wanted a regular like gun, like a traditional gun, if you wanted a straight laser, if you wanted something that would bounce around the screen. And even that alone would add to the difficulty level of Gradius. And of course, real quick, but the Konami code, of course, helped out tremendously in Gradius because it usually would soup up your ship right away.
Yeah, and I think Gradius was probably one of my favorite ones to play for that specific reason because, like, I thought the power-ups were just so cool in that game. Yep. It was cool. It was smooth. Mm-hmm. It was challenging. I mean, absolutely. It basically had all the pieces that you wanted for that type of game.
Yep. And as the systems evolved, I think you remember this, and a lot of us will remember when Xbox 360, when Xbox Live came out on Xbox 360, I think we all remember that one free game we were able to download on the Xbox 360, Aegis Wings.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Aegis Wings.
And that was awesome because that was one of the first ones where you can play online multiplayer for that. And I mean, me and a buddy of mine, we used to play all the time on Xbox Live, and it was up to 4 players. And what was cool about that one is that you were actually able to combine the ships.
Yep, I remember that.
To make like a more powerful weapon. And what was fun about that is when you combine the ships, one person flew and the other 2 or 3 would fire. And again, it added that just another element of co-op.
Well, there was that also, and because I know we don't generally talk about games for the 360, but this was like that old school side-scrolling view. But they used their the graphics capability to expand the backgrounds so that it looked really, really cool when you were going through like each level.
Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I have right now on pre-order. Again, this is jumping up into modern, but just to show you how these side scrollers are still with it today. Series Raiden, awesome series of vertical shooters. Raiden 5 is coming out on the PS4.
Oh wow!
I think next month. And when I saw that, I had to get that on pre-order because the Raiden series is just another one. Again, it's I've said it before and I'll say it again. They all have that same concept, but it's just the little tweaks, the little difference, the graphics, the weapons. It's really the weapons. All these to me really boil down to the weapons.
Yeah, I was going to say, because one of the questions I was going to throw at you is that do you think, because you love these games so much, for me, I always question, are they different enough to keep your interest? And obviously the answer for you is yes, because you play so many of them. What would always trip me up is that when I would play these games, I would just get that familiarity with it. It's like, it's just like this one, or Xevious is just like Life Force, is just like Galaga, is just like Gradius, and that would trip me up sometimes. But if you see enough difference between them, then it makes total sense to play through.
And that's exactly what it was. Gradius just had the options on the bottom to work its way through to power up the system. R-Type had that weapon you were able to launch and even maneuver to get around the enemies in the game, to clear out a level. Moving on to a game that I fell in love with on GameCube, Ikaruga. It's from Japan. It's a vertical shooter, and here's how it stands aside from everything else. In Ikaruga, you can change the color. There was 2 main colors in the game. I believe it was red and blue, maybe red and black. No, black and white. What am I talking about? Black and white.
Okay.
So what happens is when your ship would be either black or white, and the bullets from the enemies would be black or white. When you get hit with the same color bullet, you absorb its energy. Where if you got hit with a different color bullet, obviously you would get destroyed. And you were able to change the color of your ship on the fly. Remember the big green button? I think it was the C button on the GameCube?
Yes.
That was the one that changed the color. You just whack that and it would change the color of the ship.
Ah, super cool.
And Ikaruga, for me, was the first game, and really ever since then I've noticed this trend, where in these, really in a vertical, so not so much horizontal, but in a vertical side-scroller, They absolutely fill the screen with enemy projectiles, bullets, ships, where you completely lose track of your character.
Oh, wow.
I mean, in this game, I remember like the first level boss, the screen would just light up with projectiles from the boss. And you got this little ship. Now you're trying to dodge. Because that's now the new gameplay is just dodging all the bullets and everything. Because then it would start throwing out the mix of the colors. So that was the next kind of progression of what stood this game, Ikaruga, which came out on GameCube. You could also download it on the Xbox 360. It's on Dreamcast, too. I wish I got it on Dreamcast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have to go shopping.
Oh, yeah. No, if you still have your 360, I think you can download it.
Oh, yeah, but I have my Dreamcast.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I feel like that would probably.
Yeah, I was just gonna say every week when we record our episodes, I always want to go shopping right after.
Really, it's terrible.
This thing just hurts my pocket.
So these, with the side scrollers, and there's one more that I also fell in love with. This was on the PlayStation. It was one of those like $10. Remember, for a while, PlayStation was selling $10 games, like brand new $10 games.
Yep, I remember that.
It was this game called. I can never pronounce it because it's in Japanese. Geiko Shooting King. I think it's like Geako or something like that. Geiko Shooting King. And it was almost like a compilation. It was the same game.
Yeah.
But it was a vertical shooter, excuse me. But you were able to change up the gameplay. Like, you have your regular gameplay. You can also put a filter on it that made it look like it was like something from the 1920s. You were also able to play it like you were playing almost like on the Dreamcast memory card. Like, it was so scaled down and basic.
Wow.
There was a horror one where every time you shot, you hear like, ooh, oh, like it was very like a lot of moans and like let me rephrase that. It was a lot of like ghostly sounds.
Thank you for correcting that.
So that's a good one to play for Halloween. So that one changed the gameplay as far as like the filters that were on it, and one was like every time you shot some, it laughed. Oh, it was creepy.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like my kind of game.
Oh, it was wild.
The creepier, the better.
So, and then even some regular series eventually made its way, like Bonk's Adventure.
Oh yeah,
on TurboGrafx, fantastic game. Eventually came out on the NES. Actually, It was a Super Nintendo game, but on TurboGrafx. They even ended up going to a side-scrolling horizontal shooter up in.
That's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, in Air Zonk was the game that ended up into its side-scrolling shoot 'em up.
Interesting that a game like that would turn into a shooter.
I guess they just
definitely not the type. Well, I guess side-scrolling games like that, like Bonk's Adventure was a side-scrolling game, kind of like a Super Mario Brothers. Mm-hmm. So I guess since it already was a side-scroller, kind of lended itself to just adjusting. But why a prehistoric guy would become a shooter, beats me.
Why ask why?
You know what? I try not to.
No, absolutely.
And yet.
So I strongly suggest, because a lot of these games you can find very inexpensive, even like the ones downloadable today on the PlayStation 4, on the Nintendo Switch, on the Xbox. They're very easy to pick up. There's no learning curve to it, but I'm telling you right now, they're so much fun to play. And I'm telling you, go out there, check out some of them. Try and find that Ikaruga game. That one's a big time one.
Yeah, that one sounds like a fun one. I got to check that out.
Absolutely. And if you fell in love with any side scroller or vertical shooters like 1942, even like arcade ones. Remember when we went to Barcade a few months ago? Hopefully I still have the high score in 1942. I doubt it, but I got it that day.
No, I doubt you do. I want to be hopeful that somebody else beat you.
Post up those games on our Facebook page, facebook.com/RetroGamersPodcast, and let us know, other types of genres that you enjoyed besides the vertical scrollers or horizontal scrollers. Let us hear from you, and we definitely love to hopefully have you hear from us.
Well, Larry, it's your turn this week to give us a cheat of the week. So what have you come up with?
Well, keeping in tune to what we were just talking about, this one, cheat of the week, is for Gradius on the NES.
Okay.
And a lot of
what you got?
The side scrollers, sometimes once your game is over, that's it. You're going back to board 1. But on Gradius for the NES, you can continue from where you left off. And here's how you do it. So once you're done, once all your ships are depleted, to continue in Gradius on the NES, at the game over screen, you press down, up, BA, 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 start.
You want to say that again? Down, up,
Sure.
BA, 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 start?
No, wrong. No, you're right. Yes. Down, up, BA, 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 start. Now, it could have gone easy because you can use the Konami code in this one, but I figured we'd throw out a different one here for the continue. So that's how you can pick up right where you left off, Gradius on the NES. And that's this week's Cheat of the Week. All right, so we're wrapping up Superhero September with between us, Victims and Villains, and the PS Midnight Cast. Of course, every month what we do is between us, Victims and Villains, and the PS Midnight Cast. Myself, Anthony, Josh, Brandon. We try and do it on Wednesdays, but every week, let's say every week, one of us will live stream a game, and we keep it in the theme. August, we started this just last month. So, right? We started in
July.
We did start in July. Yes, we started in July. We did Castlevania because of the release of the Castlevania series on Netflix.
Yep. And then August we did wrestling games because you were in SummerSlam mode.
I spent many days at the Barclays Center for SummerSlam. That is correct.
Yep.
And this month was Superhero Month, and we played some good stuff. I did Batman on NES. Josh played Catwoman. Josh always goes for the obscure, terrible games.
I think he goes for the obscure bad ones just to say he's played them.
But that's good. I like that. That's awesome.
I like that. Yes.
And he also did a little bit of Swamp Thing, I think, on NES.
Yes, he did in honor of, Len Wein.
Yeah, no, that was a good one that he picked that one out as well. So he did a twofer. He's always going above and beyond.
Yes, he is. He's making me look bad.
And then now you're this week.
I am this week. I had to do a little switcheroo with Brandon because I was traveling last week for work. Mm-hmm. So I will be closing out Superhero September with a game of my choosing.
Okay, excellent. Always keep us in the dark.
I like to throw a little surprise here and there. Good. But I will say that the game I plan on playing was one of my favorites.
Okay.
It's also a game I'm hoping to beat during my live stream.
Ooh, nice. All right, look forward to that, folks. And last week, Brandon played probably one of the best games on the PlayStation, let alone one of the best superhero games, Spider-Man on PS1.
Yes, he did. And in fact, I did watch some of that feed because I had forgotten how awesome that game was.
Yeah.
And since I had forgotten how awesome that game was, I thought it would be perfect for our Retro Spotlight this week to close out Superhero September.
There you go. Brandon, thank you very much for the idea. This is for you, buddy. Retro Spotlight, Spider-Man.
Yes, Retro Spotlight, Spider-Man originally for the PlayStation. The first Spider-Man game was developed by Neversoft and published by Activision.
Two great companies.
Yep. It came out on the PlayStation and Game Boy Color August 30th of 2000.
Oh, both.
Then on the N64 November 21st, 2000. So you had to wait a good 3 months before it came out there. It was called Spider-Man 64 on the N64.
I did not realize that was a port of the PlayStation version.
That's exactly what it was.
Wow, okay.
It came out on the Dreamcast almost a year later, April 19th, 2001. Graphics looked a lot more solid on that version. Mm-hmm. And then later, it came out on Windows, September 17th of 2001. So it was available, on five different ways, basically. Mm-hmm. So and to be honest with you, this was probably one of the first solo superhero games where you actually felt like you were the character. Like it was like completely, it was just really, really well done.
I remember when it came out. I just remember the hype around this game. It wasn't based on any movie. It was based on the comics, which is probably the first time in a while. And I just remember just itching to get this game.
Yeah. Well, and also the game came out before the first Spider-Man movie.
That's true.
So yeah, this predated the actual Spider-Man movie, so which was awesome.
Mhm.
So and then in the game, basically, you're playing as Spider-Man, of course, and the object is to get through each level by completing objectives, reaching an exit, and in a lot of cases, defeating a boss. And during these levels, you would lose if you fell off a building or if you didn't rescue a hostage when you're supposed to, because remember, it's Spider-Man, he has to save everybody. And
Everybody gets one.
Right? And you have all of your Spidey powers at your disposal. So you can crawl on walls and ceilings, and you can swing distances, and you can almost like zip line really quickly to certain points and stuff. They also made it realistic where you had your web cartridges were limited.
Yes.
And you had to refill them when they ran out.
And that's the only thing I hated about the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. No web cartridges. The organic webbing bugged me.
That didn't bug me that much, but we can disagree on that. I was cool with that. And then during the game, you also found different power-ups. Like you would get spider armor, you would get fire webbing, so it would just shoot webs that catch on fire and stuff. All kinds of different character skins. Now, again, because this was based off of the comic book Spider-Man,
Mhm.
Spider-Man has gone through a lot of costumes since the 60s. So there were costumes that you were able to that you would find throughout the game. So you didn't just have to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You were able to do the symbiote costume, the Spider-Man Unlimited costume. You can switch into street clothes.
Mhm.
You can dress as Spider-Man 2099. All these really cool costumes. And then whenever you would complete the game, because you could complete the game as many times as you wanted, another costume would be unlocked. So you can
Mhm.
just keep unlocking these costumes until you had them all. Okay?
Oh.
So the Spider-Man game actually used the same game engine as the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series at the time.
Well, Neversoft. Okay.
Yeah, so Neversoft used that engine, and it shows because this Spider-Man game, it was a 3D environment. So you were actually, traveling through the city. You were going rooftop to rooftop through the city, and it was just so, like, I remember when I saw it for the first time, it looked so vast.
Oh, it did,
I mean,
right?
this was before like Grand Theft Auto 3 and all that stuff. This is like where it almost felt like you had that open world situation, even though you were doing specific objectives.
Mm-hmm.
In this sense, it was just really, really cool. And
it's funny that you say that, because when I was watching Brandon play, I that came back to me, like the massive size of the game. I'm like, wow, I forgot how big this game looked with the gameplay.
Yeah, it looked absolutely huge, especially at the time.
Yeah.
For the systems we were playing.
Yep.
So it was based off the Tony Hawk Pro Skater engine, and actually Spider-Man, if you didn't know, was he was actually a hidden character in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it all makes sense because Neversoft did the work on it. And then in the PlayStation, Dreamcast, and Windows version of the game, there were pre-rendered cutscenes that you would see.
Okay.
Unfortunately for the N64, because it was cartridge based, it didn't have the powers or it didn't have the capacity to show the cutscenes. So they actually did freeze frames done in comic book style with limited voice clips to at least tell the story. But if you had the PlayStation or Dreamcast or Windows, you actually got to watch cutscenes, which I thought were cooler.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, and N64 always had those technical limitations, thanks to cartridge.
Yep.
Game bosses when you play the game, it wasn't just like one game. There was one major villain and then nothing else. You went through a slew of Spider-Man's rogue gallery. So you fought Scorpion, you fought Rhino, you fought Venom, Mysterio, Dr. Octopus, Carnage, and then an exclusive character in the game called Monster Ock, which is a monster version.
Oh, yes.
The lizard was actually meant to be in the final cutscene of the game, I guess, as a precursor to the sequel. But they wound up not including it. So somewhere out there may actually be a hidden cutscene
Oh, yeah.
Of that lizard scene that was supposed to be at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm, possibly.
And of course, Spider-Man isn't Spider-Man without his Spidey friends. And some heroes did make cameos in the game. Heroes like, of course, you almost always are going to see the Black Cat in a Spider-Man game.
I remember seeing her. And, I'm not big into comics. Anthony's huge into comic books.
Yes, I am.
I wasn't that big into comic books growing up, but I remember Black Cat. Like, that was one of the first times I was introduced to Black Cat. So I even had to do a little research trying to figure out who the heck she was.
Yep. And because she always shows up. Like, I don't know if you remember playing when you played Maximum Carnage. She was in that as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Back in the on the SNES or the SNES. And then the other heroes that made appearances in this Spider-Man game were and these you guys you'll know, Larry, Captain America.
Oh, yep.
The Punisher.
Okay.
Daredevil.
Yes.
And the Human Torch.
Ah. Okay.
So you got some really good hero cameos in there. Sales for the game actually were pretty solid over the course of all the consoles. It sold 3.1 million copies, which is pretty good for a video game. Reviews for the game were mostly, they were all positive, but some more than others. So, Electronics Gaming Monthly ranged it between a 7 and a 7.8, depending on the system you got it for. Mm-hmm. The PlayStation version always scored the highest, I believe. GameSpot, 6.5 for the Game Boy Color, up to a 7.8 for the PlayStation. And then IGN was a lot more generous. They went from an 8.4 to a 9 between the N64 Dreamcast and the PlayStation version. PlayStation got 9 out of 10 with them, which was really cool.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So some quick hits that I've been calling them on these, some little interesting tidbits on Spider-Man. Some of the voice work in the game, for, like I said, for the PlayStation, for all the versions, all the console versions. Some of the voice actors from the 1990s Spider-Man and Spider-Man Unlimited cartoons actually reprised their roles for the game.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yeah. So Reno Romano, who actually voiced Spider-Man in Spider-Man Unlimited, did the voice of Spider-Man for the game.
And I loved his show, Everybody Loves Raymond. It was a fantastic primetime show.
Yep. And you don't. When you try, you fail. Just don't.
I've been told that. I've been told stop trying to be funny.
And then here's an interesting name. Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
Whoa. Okay.
Who voiced Dr. Octopus in the 1990s Spider-Man cartoon, actually came back to play Doc Ock.
Oh, that's cool.
Jennifer Hale reprised her role as Black Cat, also from the Spider-Man cartoon. She also did Mary Jane Watson in Spider-Man Unlimited. So she actually was on both series as different characters, but she came back to do Black Cat.
Okay.
Wow, and then, if you didn't know, the main song in the game, I don't know if you remember it, it was actually a rock and roll remix of the 1960s Spider-Man theme song.
I gotta go back and check that out. I don't remember.
Yeah, you gotta go listen. Yeah, it was the old Spider-Man theme song from the 60s done in a rock and roll style. I remember listening to it and I'm like, oh man, this is weird. And then one other key voice shows up in the game. The legendary Stan Lee narrates key parts of the story throughout the game. And just hearing Stan Lee's voice over a Spider-Man game, I remember, like, I was in heaven just as soon as I heard him. I was like, oh man, that was just awesome. Absolutely awesome.
I feel like that was the first time we saw Stan Lee, because he left Marvel for a little while, right?
He did.
And
he did.
I feel, I'm not saying that he came back to Marvel around that time or something, but it was almost like he was finally coming back. Not that he ever truly left, but in physical media, in video games, this was the first time he was really being associated, I feel like, with the characters that he created. And it was huge to hear him narrate
and
this game.
And it also wasn't too far. It wasn't too far removed from when the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie came out in 2001.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, So I think at this point Stan Lee was mending fences, which was cool.
Absolutely.
And then some other little tidbits about the game. When you're flying over the city, if you ever noticed, like, the city, there was always a fog in the city. It was always like a foggy day.
I noticed that when Brandon was playing.
Yeah, so the reason why there was a fog below all the buildings is because the developers didn't have the technology or the time to render an entire city. So that's why
Okay.
you never saw the ground.
I thought like when he
Uh,
was playing, I'm trying to remember. Like, was there supposed to be like a nuclear fog or something like that? Like the villain
Yep.
is trying to do? Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And then, obviously, because of the connection to Neversoft, throughout the game, there are numerous billboards on buildings advertising Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2,
Yeah, I
which
saw the
haven't come out yet.
I saw the Neversoft one when Brandon was
Right.
playing.
So, but there's even one part in the helicopter chase level where if you climb the Tony Hawk billboard, Spider-Man will mention that he once skated with Tony Hawk.
Really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
And that's a reference to, him being in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. Kind of awesome. A couple of other things. If you didn't want to play through the game multiple times to unlock everything, you can go to the cheats menu and enter a code. EELNATS was the code. EELNATS.
Okay.
So that was an interesting code. Here's another code. If you entered the following code, and it's a weird code in the cheats menu, it's GBHSRSPM. So GBHSRSPM. If you entered this code, you actually entered what if mode in the game. Now, for those of you who don't know what if is, there's a comic book series called What If, and in those series they did it's almost like an alternate universe kind of thing. So in other words,
I remember these.
yeah, so so what if Spider-Man's Uncle Ben didn't die? Or what if, Spider-Man married, Gwen Stacy instead of Mary Jane? Like they had and they did it with all of them. It was like, what if the X-Men did this, and what if the Avengers did that, and so on and so forth.
Was it a good series?
Yeah, I used to buy them all the time.
Okay.
In fact, I still have them. So the what if mode in the game, though, you get to play through the entire game, but it's entirely different from the original one. So it's just like, you're doing completely different objectives and stuff
cool.
like that in the game. Sadly, that cheat didn't work for the N64 version. They could not fit that. And
I'm
then
trying to figure out what that cheat stands for. GBH, because it took me a moment to figure out EELNATS. But
yes.
GBH, for those who figured it out, EELNATS is Stanley backwards.
Yep.
I'm sure it stands for something. Well, now you got two cheat of the weeks this week, people. So congratulations.
Exactly. And then last but not least, if you want to have a little bit of fun in the cheats menu as well, if you decided to be a little bit naughty and enter curse words into the cheat, Spider-Man will actually pop up and change the words into nice words.
Real? Oh, that's cool. I got to try that. I think I still have the game. I got to try that.
I think I still have it as well. So, yeah, that's just a fun little thing to try and watch him react to it. And that is this week's Retro Spotlight on Spider-Man, the very first Spider-Man game back in 2000 on the PlayStation N64, Dreamcast, Windows, and Game Boy Color.
All right, so we got this segment here. It's coming a fun one here. Retro Records.
Yep, and this week I thought, since, again, we are ending our Superhero September and our Retro Spotlight was on Spider-Man, I thought I would focus on a specific record, which would be the best-selling Spider-Man game.
Ooh.
So if you had to guess, what would the best-selling Spider-Man game have been?
Best-selling Spider-Man game. See, I want to say it was the one that we just featured, Spider-Man on PS1. I'm trying to think if there's been any others. Maybe... Well, if it's a retro record, I feel like it's going to be an older game. I'm going to say Spider-Man on PS1.
Okay. You are incorrect.
All right.
The best-selling Spider-Man game was actually Spider-Man the movie game from 2002.
I was thinking that one. Okay.
It sold over when you add up all the consoles and globally, 8.4 million copies.
Wow.
Which is huge.
Holy cow.
For a Spider-Man game. Well, the movie popularity.
True.
Spider-Man was such a hit at the time that it really helped sales. I mean, when you consider the first Spider-Man game in 2000 sold 3.1 million.
Oh,
so
wow.
you're talking almost triple the amount of that. So Retro Records, Spider-Man the movie, best-selling Spider-Man game, 8.4 million copies. That is this week's Retro Record.
And this week in gaming. What do we got, bro?
Well, there's no mistaking it. It's time for This Week in Gaming.
Oh, and how did you know that?
It's just a hunch. Just a hunch.
Just a hunch. Yes, it is time for This Week in Gaming. And we are going to go back to 1984. We are going to start in 1984.
Okay.
Released on DOS.
All right. That sounds like a 1984 system.
Yeah, it definitely is a 1984 system. Back on DOS, we got good old-fashioned blackjack.
All right, cool.
Hey, it had to start somewhere, right?
Exactly.
Jumping to 1985 on the Famicom in Japan, City Connection. Do you remember the game City Connection?
I love City Connection. Oh, my God. That game is fantastic. As soon as it was available on the Wii Virtual Console, I was there.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Was City Connection the one where the car never stopped moving?
Yes, that's almost kind of like like a horizontal side scroller, kind of, sort of. And
that used to drive me nuts. I always wanted to stop the car.
You had to cover every piece of the board with the car. You had to get away from the cops. You could shoot the cops with cans. There was this stupid cat that would be in the road sometimes. And then when you got hit with some, your car would just launch and it'd be like.
Yeah. I remember renting that game all the time, and that was just hysterical when the car would launch into the air.
That game. The only thing that was weird, I don't know why, not weird in a bad way, just weird, was on the player select screen, like player 1, player 2, on the main menu of City Connection, like your cursor was a heart, and that just never made sense to me.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that either. But you know what? We didn't make the game.
Loved it. Okay.
Moving on to 1986 on the Famicom Disk System.
Okay.
Castlevania.
Ooh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
It just reminds me next time I go back to Japan, I got to pick up a Famicom Disk System. I have 2 games for it, and I can't play them. Very, very important. Castlevania 1986. 1987 on the Famicom in Japan, tying into your side-scrolling games. We got Life Force.
Great game.
Yep. Moving on to 1988, also on the Famicom in Japan. There are a lot of Japan ones this time again. Okay. We got Knight Rider.
Wait, on what system?
Famicom.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I don't think. Is it KNIGHT?
Yeah, I think the Japanese also love the Hoff.
Well, listen, if Germany he kind of makes his way over. Wow, I have to look that one up. I never knew that.
Yep.
Michael, do you know who played Kit?
Not off the top of my head. No.
Mr. Feeney.
Oh yeah, Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World.
And do you know what Kit stands for?
Keep it.
Did you watch the show?
No.
Night Industry 2000. Moving right along.
Thank you. Well, that makes no sense. His name would be KI2.
I never thought of that. You just ruined it for me. I never thought of that.
Yeah, because if it was...
Well,
2000, 2000 is TT then, right?
Yeah.
KITT?
Yes.
Yeah, he should have been KI2.
That, you ruined Pie Crust for me? You're ruining all this stuff.
How did I ruin Pie Crust for you?
Because you're saying every pizzeria you go in and you make your own pizza.
Because it's true.
Pie Craft, not Pie Crust. Pie Craft.
Yeah, I'm tired. Pie Craft, Pizza Wrap, and everything like that. I'm sorry. That is false advertising because you do that everywhere you go. Sorry.
Can we please
call shenanigans. Moving on. 1989 in Japan on the TurboGrafx 16, we got Altered Beast.
Oh, nice. Boy, Altered Beast came out on everything.
I know. I love
that game. Except NES. The game's fantastic.
Well, because it was Sega.
Yeah, but it came out on the Famicom.
Yeah, but Sega would have never let anything out.
Absolutely not. You're right.
Or the reverse. Nintendo may not have let Sega release anything on their system.
True.
You know, moving on to 1990 on the Game Boy.
Okay.
In the U.S., we got the Final Fantasy Legend.
Ooh, I have that. That was a fun one. That was a fun game.
Yeah.
Good scaled down version of Final Fantasy.
Oh, very cool. Jumping to 1991, in Japan on the Sharp X68000.
The official system of the retro gamers.
That neither of us owned.
Never even heard about it until this podcast.
Exactly, and for some odd reason, we're obsessed with it.
Here we are.
We got a game called The Fairyland Story.
Okay.
And it looks like one of those games. I did just a little bit of just a little research on it, only because I was curious.
Okay.
You play a witch and you go through a series of single screen levels, and basically you have to eliminate all the enemies to proceed to the next level. It's kind of like a Adventures of Lolo, Bubble Bobble kind of thing.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say a little bit like Solomon's Key as well. Maybe not necessarily the defeating all the enemies, but that single screen levels.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's kind of like.
All right.
But yeah, again, more Bubble Bobble-y.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. But it looks kind of cool. Moving on to 1992 on the PC 98 in Japan.
Okay.
We got the beginning of a franchise that is still in existence today, Sid Meier's Civilization.
Ooh, nice. Good stuff.
Moving on to 1993 on Windows 3.x and Macintosh.
Okay.
We got a game that I was absolutely obsessed with and never got anywhere with. Myst.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you love that game.
I love that game. One of the very first point-and-click adventures, and I was probably too young to figure it out then. I bet if I picked it up now, I might get a little bit further.
Maybe.
Like I have time. Moving on to 1994 in Japan. We got a twofer on the Sharp X68000 this week.
Sweet. Go play Lotto.
Yep. We got. We should play the number 68,000. We got Super Street Fighter 2.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. You know, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned how Street Fighter 2 was on the Sharp X68000. You know, when you see this basically computer, you're like, how could that game be on that system? But it had some power. I didn't realize, though, they kept going with the series. That's cool.
Yep. They definitely did. In 1995, in Japan, on the worst handheld/console system ever released in the history of human evolution, the Virtual Boy, we got Mario Clash.
Whoa, wait a minute. Folks, stop the press. We have... Ignore that intro, but was that a Virtual Boy game that you just mentioned on the This Week in Gaming?
No, I didn't hear that. I heard about a game that was on the worst handheld/console system in the history of human evolution. I believe that was the system it was made for.
It's technically a handheld, and Mario Clash is awesome.
Hashtag VB sucks. Moving on to 1996. Very, very monumental this week in 1996, because this week in gaming history in 1996, the Nintendo 64 was released in the United States for a cool price of $199.95.
It was $200 back then?
Yeah.
I mean, $200 was a lot, but I didn't realize it was that inexpensive.
No. But think about it this way. It was also $200. Yep, it was the first Nintendo system that did not come with a game, so you had to buy Super Mario 64 separately for $60.
So, no, maybe even $70. A lot of those games were almost $70 back then.
No, I don't think it was $70. I think it was $60.
I think
but
so,
anyway,
but either way, that was I had the N64 for about 2 weeks before I had a video game.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, happy 31st birthday, N64. You were an awesome system.
Mazel tov.
Yep. Jumping to 1997 on the PlayStation, we got Resident Evil Director's Cut.
Ooh, yes.
I loved that game. Both of those games, Resident Evil and the Director's Cut, awesome. Not to mention the rest of the series. 1998 on the PlayStation as well. We got a lot of monumental games this week.
Okay.
1998 Metal Gear Solid.
Oh, wow. There's a genre changer or the first of its kind with that stealth gameplay where you really didn't do anything but sneak around.
Yeah, but it was just awesome. I mean,
totally.
The original Metal Gear game had a lot of that sneaking around stuff too.
And you're able to smoke in it.
Yeah, which was awesome. Moving on to 1999. This game was mentioned in our Retro Spotlight when we were talking about Spider-Man. On the PlayStation, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Sweet.
The first one.
Yep.
1999. Jumping to 2000 on the Nintendo 64. We got Pokemon Puzzle League.
Oh, I love that game. Game was fantastic, and a lot of gameplay happened in college in my dorm room. For some reason, Pokemon Puzzle League, it's Tetris 2, but with the Pokemon overlay on it. But that
was just
game
fun.
was so popular, especially with multiplayer when we were
Yep.
playing in college. That and GoldenEye, forget about it.
Yes, GoldenEye, a game I've never played. Moving on to 2001 on the PlayStation 2, Silent Hill 2.
Okay, all right, good
Which
series.
most people, I think most people believe that one was the best of the series.
Probably.
Not
I would
mistaken.
say that.
Yep. So Silent Hill 2. Going from some of the greatest games ever made to some of the worst games ever made. In 2002 on the PlayStation 2, we got Superman, Shadow of Apocalypse.
Oofa.
Oh, man. Poor Superman. Still, I still think to this day, like, the only game he had that was semi-decent was Death and Return of Superman.
I will agree with that 100%.
That's it. Man of Steel. Well, then again, I mean, even his movies, hit and miss. Moving on to 2003 on the PlayStation 2 in Japan,
Okay.
they got Grand Theft Auto 3.
Oh, wow, okay. Wow, no 2?
No, 3.
Oh, no, the year.
Oh, 2003.
Oh, 2003, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, wow.
2003.
Okay.
Yep. 2004 on the GameCube.
Ooh.
Do you remember a game called Donkey Konga?
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
You actually had to get bongo drums for
It
that
came
thing.
with bongo drums. Yep. I never played it, but still.
Nutty. I heard it was a good game, but
Oh,
still,
yeah.
I couldn't bring myself to buy a video game that had conga drums. I just couldn't do it. Sorry.
Wait a minute.
Didn't
Didn't you own the game with the maracas?
No, Samba de Amigo. I never had that.
I thought I could have sworn you had that.
Nope.
I don't know. You remembered that name pretty quickly. I don't know.
No, I definitely didn't. I remember the game. I remember the game because of the ridiculous maracas.
Okay.
What I did own, if you remember correctly, on the Dreamcast was Dance Dance Revolution, and it had the hard plastic.
You
dance
did,
pad.
yes, the hard plastic.
They broke just as easily. Moving on to 2005 on the Xbox and PlayStation 2, we got NBA 2K6.
Okay.
Continuing the basketball franchise. And last but not least, in 2006, which is our cutoff year here for This Week in Gaming, until we adopt more of the current systems into our retro library.
In other words, until we get older.
Right. In a couple more years when the Wii and the 360 become official retros and the PS3. But until then, we cut off at 2006. On the Nintendo DS, we got Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis.
Those were fun games. Those were very fun.
Yeah?
They play like very much kind of like Lemmings, kind of like Krusty's Funhouse. So those are very fun to pick up and play.
All right, cool. And that is This Week in Gaming.
All right, and that is This Week with the Retro Gamers. This was a good one. For all you new listeners out there who discovered us through the Spreaker website, we hope, A, that you lasted this long with us, and B, that you'll continue to last with us. We really appreciate it.
And if you did make it all the way to the end of the episode now, if you'll allow me to apologize for my podcast partner's terrible humor and additional love for the Virtual Boy, I promise that I will keep it in check as much as I can for as long as we do our podcast.
And with that, you can find us everywhere. iTunes, Spreaker, YouTube, iHeartRadio. Just search all of it.
We're everywhere now, aren't we?
For the Retro Gamers Podcast, Facebook.
Soon to be haunting your dreams.
I hope so. Facebook. I've already done that already with some people. Facebook.com/Retro Gamers Podcast. We're on Instagram at _Retro Gamers. Ant, what do you got happening?
What do I got happening right now? We have my my superhero game for this week coming up.
Yes. Yep.
And then there's my Zelda Symphony next weekend.
Okay.
And then we jump into October. One of my favorite times of the year.
Well, that old boogity boogity oogity oogity, all the scary stuff.
Yes, yes, exactly, and that's exactly what it sounds like too when it gets scary.
That's what
Boogity boogity oogity. Yes, that's exactly right.
All right, cool.
I think the scariest you get with movies is Hocus Pocus. So
I've never seen Hocus Pocus. Thank you.
I don't think so. Liar.
And October, we'll be playing some horror games in October ourselves, Victims and Villains, and the PS Midnight Cast.
Yes, looking forward to that.
Absolutely. I've
got like all of them.
It's going to be a fun one. And in the meantime, again, just keep following us. Subscribe to any of those places we said, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, YouTube. Check us out. Share share us. Let everyone know about the Retro Gamers, and hit us up on our Facebook page. Let us know what you remember about retro gaming. And with that, Ant, I'm going to catch you next week.
All right. See you next week.
See you later, everyone.